You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So let's start off with option number one, and that is that Syracuse football decides to stay in-house. And there are 5 different options. If any of these 5 players are, I should rephrase myself, if none of these 5 players on the active roster right now are not the quarterback next season, and it's not a transfer, I would be absolutely stunned. Beyond belief stunned. 5 options. You got Michael Johnson Jr., a senior. You got Carlos Del Rio Wilson, also a senior. You got Jakhari Williams, who will be a redshirt freshman, a 3-star from Georgia last season. Not actually from the University of Georgia. I mean, he's from Georgia in high school. You also got Luke Carney, a 3-star true freshman, and Rich Belin, a 3-star true freshman. There are more quarterbacks, but once again, if it's someone other than those 5 and they decide to stay in-house, I would be absolutely stunned, okay? More than likely, it would be a young guy. So I would say for the sake of this pros and cons of staying in-house, it's going to be one of Jakhari Williams, Luke Carney, or Rich Belin. I do not see Michael Johnson Jr. or Carlos Del Rio Wilson being the week 1 starting quarterback for Syracuse football against Tennessee. If either of those guys are the starting quarterback, we are in huge trouble. So luckily, I think the coaching staff understands that. Here is the big pro of staying in-house. You could have a long-term solution. You could. Assuming it's a young kid, right? It's going to be Jakhari Williams, Rich Belin, Luke Carney, one of those 3. If it's a young guy, you might have yourself a long-term quarterback solution. The most likely candidate is Jakhari Williams because he's already got experience on campus already. Scouting reports say that he is a dual threat. He can extend plays, but he does have to work on his accuracy. If over the course of the season he got better with accuracy sitting on the bench, that would be terrific, and he could be the week 1 starter. I have never seen him play, so I cannot tell you if he is going to be good or not. It also goes with Luke Carney and Rich Belin. I get that they're true freshmen, and true freshmen don't typically see the field right away. It does happen. Sometimes they do. There are outliers out there. We even saw with NC State, with CJ Bailey, a true freshman, playing a lot this season. If any of those guys emerge right off the bat for Syracuse football as an in-house option, you could have yourself a long-term solution at the quarterback spot, which would be the best case scenario, right? You have a long-term solution at quarterback. Who wouldn't sign up for that? But there are some obvious cons to staying in-house. The big one is that you have no margin for error if you are going with an in-house guy to start. If they go with Jakhari Williams, because he's the most likely candidate and he's the starter week 1 and he's not very good, by the way, the schedule this season on paper is tougher. You got Tennessee on a neutral site. You're at Notre Dame. You're at Clemson. You're at Georgia Tech. You're at Miami. You're at SMU. It's not an easy schedule by any means necessary here. So if Syracuse is, let's say, wrong with a guy like Jakhari Williams and that he's really not ready to be the starting quarterback, and let's just say they make a change and it's Luke Carney or it's Rich Belin, it's not looking good for 2025. And all of that momentum you built in 2025 could be just zapped away. Or, excuse me, all the momentum you built in 2024 could just be zapped away because you didn't get the quarterback right. That is the big con. Also, I am not someone who wants to play a true freshman. So if you start Jakhari Williams and he struggles, there's going to be calls that, hey, we should give Rich Belin or Luke Carney a shot, right? As true freshmen. And I get that sometimes it has worked out. CJ Bailey, I just said, for NC State, played really well. He's coming back for NC State. If he was in the transfer portal, I'd be highly interested in him. He's not. But typically, it doesn't go very well when a true freshman plays. I don't care how great you are. That guy better be ready. The other con is this. I mentioned that, hey, if you stay with an in-house option, you could have a long-term solution at quarterback, assuming he plays well, right? Wouldn't that be awesome? Except you're not guaranteed for that to be a long-term solution. You're not. If Jakhari Williams is the starting quarterback next season for Syracuse football, and let's just say the best case scenario, he's an All-American. Best case scenario, right? We'd all be thrilled. We'd all be raising our pom-poms, go Orange. If he's an All-American next season, who knows? Maybe Syracuse football can make a playoff. You have an All-American quarterback, it's certainly possible. I mean, they had an All-ACC quarterback this year, and they damn near almost made it. They're 22nd in the country. They're not that far away. So if you got an All-American, maybe you do make it, but there's the problem that the transfer portal is a real thing. And I'm not trying to sit here and suggest that, hey, a young guy is going to transfer. I'm not suggesting that. But let's say we do go with a young guy next season, and he does really well. Whether that person decides to leave or not, you know that other teams are going to be calling. There's too much money going around in college football to where it just wouldn't happen. So Jakhari Williams next season, or Luke Carney or Rich Belin, they're all Americans. And you're telling me that a team like Ohio State or Alabama isn't going to come calling and say, hey, we want you to play for us? And think about how much money they can throw around. Now, I mean, it's not guaranteed that that player would leave. But that's why the big pro of, hey, it could be a long-term solution is could. It could be a long-term solution because the transfer portal is a real thing. And you got no margin for error if you are going with a young guy next season. So overall, what are your thoughts on sticking in-house at the quarterback position next season? Leave a comment in the comment section below. And hey, I'm not perfect. If I missed a pro or I missed a con, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. Would you stick in-house at quarterback in 2025? That means week 1 against Tennessee, we're rolling with one of Jakhari Williams, Luke Carney, or Rich Belin. I'd love to hear your thoughts.